clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and welcome to week 4 of the Survivor Pool Experience. Thanks for showing up. Again, just to kind of recap kind of the order of things, the Tuesday recap is when we kind of go over what we thought about last week and do some kind of analysis to kind of test how we did. Obviously, results are important, but also we always have to test process and just kind of do a quick kind of recap of the week. I'm adding a little something extra into this recap show where we go over some of the pools and make a couple of observations. And then the big deal is tomorrow, where we go over week 4. We get really into the weeds. We talk about all the things that are important, the things that people think that are important that are not, and put ourselves in a position to win these things. And more to the point, to make the most money in these things. And sometimes that's the same thing. Sometimes it's not the same thing. So what you're looking at here again is the tool that we created, which is, it's really not that complicated, but the important part of it is that it's customizable. In other words, if you want to keep running new EV calculations with different ownership percentages, you can keep doing that. And if you want to change the win percentage of these teams for whatever reason, probably a bad one, you can do that and then recalculate the EV. And we'll continue to discuss how important it is or how unimportant it is to have a good EV in a particular week. Now, I bring it up as background because part of what we were doing last week was actually tinkering with these ownership projections. When we looked at this, I did mention that Seattle looked way too short as far as their popularity prediction, which was, I believe, 18%. I felt it the worst could actually pump up to 40, and at the I think it was a fair statement, as you go back to the old recordings to see exactly what I said, but I thought a fair assessment would be in most pools to be about 30%. That's what I thought they would be. And especially in double pick pools, they could even be a little higher. So we changed that to 30% for the purposes of analysis. And we figured it had to come from somewhere. So we took some of it from Buffalo, and then we kind of reran the EVs, and then we did the analysis. It's always a nice balancing act of what's good EV for the week versus what sets yourself up for good EV in the future. And as you recall, what we decided was that, first of all, with Buffalo, we thought their EV was strong enough that we really shouldn't dismiss them. It was, we didn't consider that the best play, but certainly reasonable. And they were actually kind of sneaky good in double pick pools. So we actually didn't mind Buffalo. Then the 2.5, I guess, good future value teams that we identified were Seattle, Atlanta, and Indianapolis. We recounted that their EV might have been a little bit low, but again, we'll get into more of this Wednesday, but you get a price for that. In other words, you pay a little bit of EV, but you get kind of a better ticket. If it comes in, you have access to better teams. So it's not so bad to give up EV if you're going to get a better board as a result of it. So even with the 30% projected ownership, I felt as though Seattle was just right on par with Atlanta. So at the end of the day, I did recommend that Seattle and Atlanta would be the top, followed by Buffalo, followed by Indianapolis. But Indianapolis was, even though they had a similar EV to Seattle and Atlanta, I felt they had a little bit more value in week 8 than even was being projected. It said here in this look ahead line that Indianapolis would be minus 3.5 over Tennessee. And I just figured that was way too low, that they were going to probably be more like minus 7 or 8. So I figured they had more future value. So I put them a little bit below. But yet still, those are the four teams that I liked. I was very, very violently aggressive about saying not to play any Green Bay or Tampa Bay. And listen, results are results, but Green Bay getting fluke knocked out by Chicago, by Cleveland, that felt good. And Tampa almost getting fluke knocked out by the Jets, that would have been really, really good too. But nonetheless, as far as results go, I mean, fine. I mean, Atlanta, obviously that would have been nice if they won too, but Seattle won easily, Buffalo won easily, and Indianapolis won easily, honestly. So depending on how much you played of each or whatever, you should be pretty content. And we lost some guys, we lost some Green Bays. We lost some people to Baltimore, even with all their future value. They disappeared. Some people took Atlanta. They disappeared. So we did get some eliminations, which is obviously really good. Let's take a look. And this was actually kind of interesting. I want to take a look at the three big splash pools to see how close we came with ownership and just make a couple of observations. So first of all, with the respect to the big splash one, which is the one with double picks, okay, this was not surprising. I mean, we saw Seattle at 35%, and that is more reflective of what my ownership projections were. So we did well. You know what I mean? Like to project Seattle where we did well as far as that's concerned. Bills, we did suspect they'd be lower owned than they were projected, and that was true. Buccaneers and Tampa came in at 10. Chiefs, we were pretty sharp, honestly, with the ownership projection. So that's really, really good. The other two tournaments I want to look at, let's look at, by the way, the SHIPIT Nation version of it. Similar rules to the Big Splash, but in this one, we actually had less take Seattle, like 30% instead of the 34%, and everything else is pretty much the same. What is surprising to me is that you look at the high roller, which is a single entry. It's very surprising that Seattle was just about as highly picked in singles as they were in pools with doubles. I mean, I think this is actually pretty poor. I think this is actually probably been too high. I would have made Buffalo probably a little bit higher there. So this is actually a little surprising. Green Bay, they got really steamed up in the single pick pool. That was interesting. 15% there. So that's kind of a recap of the different pools. Okay. I wanted to take a quick look at the map, and then we could actually do kind of an early reveal at the of the new numbers, which should either be out now or in a few moments. Let's see. Yeah, they are out actually. So when I refresh this in 2 seconds, we'll be able to see that. Again, I want to save the in-depth analysis for the premium show tomorrow, but just to show you that it does update. But the one thing I will say is that the look ahead lines are still, I think, a little bit square. I mean, I think that there's some future value that's being over and understated throughout here, and that's one of the things when we go through the premium shows, we'll talk about what people are looking at that might not even be real. Like I still keep going back to this Tennessee at Indianapolis line, where they still have it at 3.5 for Indianapolis. I won't play any Survivor if you tell me that I could play Indianapolis minus 3.5 at home against Tennessee. And likewise, I have Green Bay still like only -3 over a Jake Browning-led Cincinnati Bengals, now coming off a 40-point loss or whatever. That's not real either. I imagine Green Bay is going to be more like 9 in that game, or at least 7. No, so I think that was one of the things that I think may have, led people to pick Green Bay more than they should have. I think Green Bay just hasn't really been updated for how good they are. Now, again, this last week notwithstanding, their power ratings are still really, really strong. So I think that all of the Green Bay stuff is going to be upgraded. Okay, so just watch for that. And listen, these are all kind of like consensuses from around the industry, so I can't really control where these look like, I can't manually change the look ahead lines. They're just going to update or not. And we as kind of just, intelligent people can override them in our analysis. The good thing is that the future value piece of this is not as quantitative as the EV stuff. So if I think that, Indianapolis should be -7, is going to be, let's put it another way, -7 over Tennessee, it's not as if that becomes a 1.6 to a 1.9. It doesn't work that way. It's not as quantifiable, where in EV, if I knew that the ownership was going to be higher, then I could certainly at least quantitatively assess this. Okay. What I want to do, I guess I'll do this for funsies. Couple of people asked me throughout the week, do I look at the map from like the last week out, okay, and try to backtrack? And it's this idea of putting a path in place, like in advance, that you can look at. And I do a little less of that than I used to, but that means I still do probably more of that than 95% of the people do. Okay. I used to have like all these paths. I would keep writing them down and have different paths for different entries and things like that. But the thing is that things change so much with respect to who's going to be good and all that stuff, that you don't want to get too bogged down with one particular path. So, but just for funsies, let's take a look at this map and let's see if we can't just come up with, just at the top of my head, like a way to get from now through week 18, okay, and use all, and not use a single like awful team and only use everybody once, okay? All right, so remember, we're trying to get through week 10. We'll use the doubles, okay? How about we do the doubles? So that means we got to get through week 10 singles and then week 11 doubles, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to reset this, because I know that the new numbers are out. So let's just say week 4, let's try Houston. Like they're -6 against Tennessee. Seems reasonable. Then you go to week 5, Arizona. If you didn't use Arizona yet, Arizona, you could probably get to them. You could probably play Minnesota. But again, I don't think you could play either of these guys in the future. So let's slot either of these guys in, Minnesota or Arizona. Week 6, follow me here. How about we put in Pittsburgh, okay? -6.5. They don't have much in the future either, so let's get rid of them. But week 7, you could try Chicago, maybe. That's possible. Let's put them in for now. Week 8, we already talked about Indianapolis. Let's jam them in against Tennessee. Week 9, we have a couple options. Let's say you play the Rams or the Packers, one or the other even. Let's see. Week 10, we're still not in doubles. Week 10, look at this. You might be able to do something like Carolina at this point. Like if Carolina is actually not that bad and New Orleans is really as atrocious as they seem, maybe the Panthers could be like -7 here. Who knows? So that looks pretty good. And now we got to get into week 11. Let's just come up with some like wild doubles here to see if we can't figure this out. Okay, how about New England? Okay, -5.5 here. And then let's go back for our old friend Atlanta, right? They're home against Carolina. Maybe they're getting more than, giving up more than 3. All right, so that looks good. Then week 12, well, we haven't used Detroit yet. Let's throw them in. And that would be kind of fun is to use something like Cincinnati, who's probably really bad. Okay, or maybe the Raiders. So like Bengals or Raiders could be the second team. So let's do Detroit and Cincinnati, or Detroit and Raiders. And you go to week 13. You get another chance to play. Well, you know what you could do? You can play the Chargers. Why not? You can play the Chargers, or if Miami gets their action, look at this. Miami's got a New Orleans game. So let's actually save the Chargers. We're going to get to them later. Or maybe you don't need the Chargers. So either Miami or the Chargers in week 13. Actually, you got to play 2, right? So Miami and the Chargers. Perfect. Week 14. How about Tampa and Baltimore? We haven't used them yet. It's the top 2. How about that? Week 15. We've saved Philadelphia, so now we get to jam them in here. And look at this. San Francisco, we can jam them in also. We haven't played them either. We're already at week 16, and we're doing this with doubles. Well, you know what? Good thing we've been saving Buffalo all this time. So let's play Buffalo and, remember that? We saved Denver all that time. So we'll dump Denver on people week 16. So we can actually do this. And then week 17, are we out of teams yet? Let's see, maybe, are we out? Nope, because we didn't play Washington yet. And check this little sneaky one out. How about like Tennessee as the only time they're ever going to be favored against New Orleans as part of the double? And then week 18, who do we got left? How about Jacksonville minus 4.5 home against Tampa? And then we probably run out of teams, but who cares? I mean, now we can pick any of these guys. So again, I did this myself like last night in like 10 minutes. So it's not hard, like, to at least conceptualize a path. And yeah, you could play it this way and then just go backwards and just kind of just keep firing it. But I found is that doing that really limits your vision. Okay. And like the path that I just mentioned was as of now, right? And as you see, week after week, these teams improve. Their look ahead lines change. So by the end of the season, who knows? Maybe everything I said is backwards, and maybe Tennessee is good or something like that. So, one thing I will notice about that is really funny. I think that path I just gave you actually got through without playing the Chiefs at all. That's pretty cool, right? So that's it. That could be our week 18. Week 18, they're pairing with the Atlanta. So KC, Atlanta in week 18. Let's go. And listen, if KC's been playing the way they've been playing, which is not that great, they're going to certainly need to win in week 18. So that's good news. Okay, you want to do the first look? Let's do the first look at this week. And then we're not going to analyze. I'm going to wait for tomorrow on that one, but just to get a quick look-see. And ready? Boom! There it is. So let's see. Let's let's calculate for week 4 and just take a quick look to see what it did. So you'll see that, wow, you're going to have Buffalo as a 15-point favorite. So naturally, their EV is going to be high. So we'll talk about that. And then you got a lot of teams. You got 5 teams above or close to 1.0 EV. And then a drop down to a couple of others. So there's going to be options this week, I think. And we will get into that tomorrow. I guess that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Again, I want to keep this kind of short, but I do encourage for all of you who have not signed up yet. Listen, the value of this just increases as people drop out. And I really considered like charging more as the season went on, but I don't think we're doing it that way. It's up to the SHIPIT guys. But I really encourage you guys to get in there. Even listen, I'm that type of person that I just kind of want to learn anyway. And almost if I wasn't even playing, I would want to pay to learn how to do this. But nonetheless, I think that we do a good job with this. I do promise you that you're going to be better than 99.9% of the people who play Survivor if you go through this entire season with me and learn how to do this stuff. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time. Same bat channel, as people from my generation might say. And that is going to do it. Good luck.